Well, hello everyone. Here, talk about right here. I'm talking about salary here, and I'm sure most of us know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm talking about is that to where you would be paid an actual fair salary when we're talking about any source of employment, right? But a lot of times it sure seems that way that whenever it comes to seeing advertisements or any sorts of job descriptions, a lot of times and year 102 is that a lot of times is that you would see something like $15 an hour right here, or maybe you would see maybe something some sort of advertisement that says something like sign up today or something like that. But how often are we going to maybe think about any sorts of logo design right here of like talking about whenever it comes to understanding about a little boy sitting at a desk right here, and I don't know if we've all been able to see this right here, look at this very carefully, but I include right here this sketch right here of a little boy sitting right here at a desk right here. And if anybody knows exactly what that means right here, I'm talking about is toward it, if you were to actually look at an actual newspaper print and 102, that most of the time it's going to include 2 pages, right? So like everybody might say that every time you do read an article, it's going to maybe include 2 pages right here. The front and back page or so, and you see right here at the top, it's got right here on top for the questions, right? But it's like each time that you think about that in your 102, that having a desire to make a lot of money, and then also anything else that you want to talk about whenever it comes to whenever for every given choice is a given, for every given voice is a given choice, and so each time you do think about that, and you're warned to where that a lot of things are kind of coming to your mind, right? And one of those is like you go ahead and start the conversation right here. You start making a statement and maybe a few words of a statement right here, and then you have here's the questions, right? So it sure seems that way that how many of us can really think about that to where that you start talking about something to the point to where that maybe somebody's maybe going to be they're going to go ahead and have a question for you, and so like it sure seems that way that if we would actually put that into a point of perspective, right, in 102, that the first 2 pages right here, so it sure seems that way that could we possibly look at that something like this right here of talking about for the first 2 pages right here, and you're 102 that do you think that has anything to do with like if you were to be talking to your older brother or your older sister in 102, that what is a good example of a salary? And salary pretty much means is that you are willing to pay somebody just to be able to get the answers for that get some put some any sort of scenario together, right? So it sure seems that way that every time you do think about that, and you're 102, that a lot of times whenever you get into these conversations, a lot of times it's like, yeah, well, I don't do my work, unless if I'm offered any source of allowance or any source of pay, or something like that. But it sure seems that way that every time I think about that, it's like, the first thing you think about is that, if somebody were to look at the first 2 pages of the work in progress, and let's just say that, you have right here of this discussion right here, and let's just say that the first 2 pages start out with like, you got the gifts right there, but let's just say the first 2 pages start out right here, and down at the bottom right here, I talk about discussing your problems, and also talking about for any source of employment, your responsibility. But then you have right here, talking about for the application, but then the little boy sitting at a desk right here. And so in case of anybody that asked me that, I was actually working on this, just to make this look a little bit like if it was supposed to represent for a logo. And with this logo, and like people might want to know too, that yeah, that right there it looks like a desk right here, but really, what does that really tell anybody in general? Like, what is that supposed to mean? A little boy sitting right there at a desk, and people might even say that unless it looks like a table or something like that, but it's like you go from maybe like everybody says, to where if you go from sitting at a chair or something like that, and but still that with anything else that you were doing right, but the first thing that you want to know too is that whenever somebody watches you work, number one, that what do you think exactly that they're thinking about? I'm like, what does that really teach anybody whenever they actually watch you work and all that? But you see right here, your little boy at a desk right here, but then also $15 an hour right here. So it's like, so every time you think about that in your 102, that $15 an hour right here. So if you actually put that onto any source of advertisement, though, right here, and that you're warranted toward it, really that $15 an hour, and the way you think about that, and it sure seems that way, that we can probably all think about that to where that for any source of catch or anything like that, but you're warranted to where that the original ad would have been is toward that they would have paid you $11 an hour. It would have been $11 an hour, but then they would have add in right there is $4 extra, just because of it's all counted at like on a form of some sort. But it sure seems that way that every time you do think about work, though, and people might even want to know too, that when we do talk about salary pay and everything, and knowing that every time you look at that, and you're warned toward anything that's on the ad right here, right? But you're thinking as to where that how many like people might even say that that every time you do think about that, and you're 102, does it really help you out a lot whenever you can look at the first 3 pages of an article, and let's just say that page 1 and page 2 right here, which they would explain the work that you do, and knowing about if it's going to be any source of promotions or anything like that. But it's like you're 102 that $15 an hour, and you might see something like that, but like everybody else might say that really that how really like a lot of these job descriptions for sure that you would like to know too that do you think that it would maybe make more sense to be able to explain in 2 pages? 2 pages. Do you think that 2 pages would make a difference whenever it comes to coming up to an agreement to where that you're trying to explain to somebody the work that you put into something, and then that any adjustments or any changes and adjustments that they had to be made and all that. But like everybody might say is toward really that the first 2 pages right here are I'm like if we've seen this before right here, but talk about for disability, but it sure seems that way that when we do speak about any source of advertising, right, and you're 102 that if you put $15 an hour right there, and 102 that you're going to go ahead and start so if you're trying to put up any sorts of advertisements or anything like that, and people might say that $15 an hour, really that so every time you do think about $15 an hour right here, and let's just say that the way it was displayed right here, that you actually seen it on a big poster board size right here, but it was actually advertised on the application right here, but it's just 1-page document right here. So it sure seems that way that whenever you're going to be working any sort of job, for sure, don't you think that everybody else would maybe like to see the work for what you're doing first before you actually discuss about how much that you're willing to pay this person, you just to be able to do the job? And So it's like, yeah, a lot of everybody say was to where that's what you call a job assessment. It's called a job assessment, where you actually, whenever you're going to be working a job, and then somebody's going to see what you're doing. Somebody actually sees what you're doing, and then they would ask you as to where can you please explain on that 2-page document what you come up with, and I know a lot of the job assessments would say is to where that after you got done explaining all what you were talking about, and you got somebody asking you questions, right? So it's like, so every time you think about that, and you're warned to where that do you think that questions are just taking up too much of your time? Every time you think about almost everything that you were working on for sure, people are going to say that, and don't be surprised if somebody has a lot of questions for you, and for sure, if they're going to like the answers, and a lot of times it's like, if somebody's going to like the answers that they get after they ask the questions for sure, how often are they going to go ahead and ask you another one? 5 minutes later, they're going to ask you another one, or that still does not answer my first question, or something like that. So every time you think about that, and you're warned to where that if you could get paid at $15 an hour to answer a few questions, like everybody might say that, people may even say that, how many of us really even believe that you can get paid? I'm like, whenever it comes to a survey or something like that, you earn any sorts of reward points. But it's like every time you think about that, and you're warned to where that whenever it comes to salary, though, is that that a lot of the hard work that you put into something, and you're warned to where that what's one thing that a lot of kids or anybody else would even say that they really look forward to knowing is to where that whenever you do work hard enough into something in 102, that the first thing that you're going to ask for sure is that that was not in the instructions, but are you still going to take time to look at this right here? The first 2 pages right here, the first 2 pages, that was not in the instructions. That was not in the original directions. So, but still, that what I put together right here is actually some information right here based on, you see right here for marital status right here, for challenges right here. But, everybody might say is that, for your records, the things that, talk about for responsibility right here. But one thing I did want to talk about right here, I'll talk about a little boy at a desk right here. And, so in case of anybody that asked me that, I'm like, really, that, I was working on this, I was thinking that, that looks like a table, doesn't it? It looks like a table, but there's nothing on that table right there. So you want to know too, whenever you first start working, for sure, that you might want to kind of get some ideas just by, drawing a table right here, like you have right there as a table, but then at the same time that you want to know too that you're sitting at a table, and people might say that that's not really working right there. You're not really working whenever you're going to be sitting right in front of the table like that. There's nothing on that table. So it's like, you may want to know too that a lot of the meetings that you do talk about, that do you think that maybe 2-page documents explaining, something that you were working on, and like everybody might say that, it could include maybe 1 or 2 infographics or so, but still, that knowing that that whenever you first, do you think 2 pages or maybe even 4 pages altogether? Do you think 4 pages or even 2 pages is going to explain all the work that you were doing, all the work that you were putting together, but then somebody is willing to pay you $15 an hour, just to be able to put all that together? And 102, that, I got a question for you. I'm just warning, okay? I was just warning, all right? I'm just warning, but still. So it's like, you want to know too that, every time you do think about that, and you're warned toward it, that, whenever you first looked at an advertisement, for sure that the first thing that you probably would have read on there was $15 an hour, but then, you didn't see this little boy sitting at a table right here, but then also that, anything about the advertisements from earlier that people want to know too, that you start talking about something, and somebody's going to say that, after 5 minutes after you talk, somebody's got a question about something. And so it sure seems that way that, that's one way of how to start, is that, whenever you got questions that come in, and for sure, people may be going to say is that, $15 an hour, $15 an hour is really the best way to start, is if you can answer a few questions, even though if they seem to be really annoying, but still, like everybody say that, do you think that that's maybe going to be one of the first source of progress whenever it comes to a responsibility, right? Whenever it comes to a job. And people might say that, while you're talking about something, while you're trying to explain to somebody that this is why applications are important right here, but then people may say that, you saw on that advertisement $15 an hour, but you also saw talking about questions. And so somebody saw this advertisement right here, and they're warned to where, after they read this section right here, that's whenever questions start coming in, and that's whenever people start saying this, to where if you can just show them 2 or 3 pages or so, show them 2 pages of a document explaining what all that you were working with, and for sure, people might say that, $15 an hour. And how many of us would even say is to where that, are you willing to spend at least, 10 hours of your time out of a whole week or so? Let's just say that maybe 3 days, if you work on it for 3 days. And, do you think for any reason at all that that $15 an hour, that if you think that all the work in progress from what what the person, like, the publisher or the editor, if you like the work that they put together, for sure. And people might say that, well, despite about their disability and all that, but every time I think about that, people might say that, marital status, and, the marital status and all that, but still, that, the marital status, and, you probably think is toward marital status is not no marketing tool or anything, but, really, that, that's on your application, but, like, people may even say, too, that, every time you think about a salary, though, that, you probably thinking is toward, whenever you do think about a salary, that you're thinking about, a lot of it, all your clients and everybody else are all counting on them from the work that they do. And that is why it seems like people might say that, really, number one, if it was not in the instructions, number one, for sure, do you think that this is a good idea just because, the first 2 pages right here, it's going to include something that you really recommended, for somebody to read and follow up with or something like that. But still, it's like every time you do think about any source of advertisement, though, and you're warned to where that, if you go by the requirements all the time, for sure, it seems like that maybe you're just not listening to everybody else, and that they'll probably tell you that, just to be able to listen to people speak and all that, but, really, that when we do talk about $15 an hour right here, and, people might say that if you're going to be putting anything on any source of advertisement, don't you think that it would make more sense to have your hard work recorded on on a 2-page document, to where that where people can read it? People can read it, a 2-page document right here, to where people can see and read what is it that you're doing, what is it that you're talking about, and so when people can ask the questions, right? And that's why it seems like that, 2 pages right here, where somebody can actually see that and read that, and then you want to know too that the work that keeps you busy, right? But you want to know too that top up for salary, right? Well, for salary, that why do you think that anybody will be counting on that? But it sure seems that way. That it all goes by saying is to where that if you think that it's really going to make a difference, and for sure that if anybody has any questions for you, and for sure that they'll say that yeah, they saw your work right there, and you'll probably say is to where that whenever you were working there in your office right there, whenever you were working in there in your office, you were probably always wanting to know too. You're working in there in that office and thinking as to where it seems like that every time you turn around, that it's like people are going to be asking you questions, right? They're going to be asking you questions, and you always want to know too that are questions really going to delay the whole process of trying to get your work done? And people might say that $15 an hour to be able to do any sort of survey, to provide feedback. Yeah, that's usually how it is. Is that any job that you think about, and people may even say too that that's what it is. They're going to say that all you really have to do is just answer a few questions on that survey, and then that's a good way of how to start, to where you can go ahead and start earning some extra points and some extra money, doing something like that. And so like everybody might say that for good feedback and everything, but every time you do think about salary though, that you'll learn to where that whenever you're working on something, you don't really think right away about how much money do you think that you'll be making if you were actually doing this right here, right now. You're just checking it out, and you're just you're just getting some practice with it. But like everybody might say that that the first thing that you were thinking about whenever you were thinking about your picture right here, whenever you think about a painting right here, were you thinking about money in general, or were you maybe just thinking about is that no, people are going to have questions for you. They're going to have questions, and they're going to have, they're going to start asking questions, and you should already know for sure that anybody who's going to be looking at what you're doing and watching what you're doing, for sure, they're going to say is that, the more questions that come in, for sure, that, how often are people going to say that, that job is willing to pay you $15 an hour if you are willing to provide some more reasonable information to them. And let's just say that one of those source of reasonable information is going to be about is that to where that whenever you talk about responsibilities, right? But it's like you want to know too that every time you think about a job though, that you're thinking is toward you're always maybe thinking is toward that if it's not in the instructions, if it was not in the directions and in the requirements, for sure, how useful do you think that information is going to be? But people might say that, well, really, that if you look at the first 2 pages right here, this right here was actually displayed on an actual desk or table. It's like, you want to know too that your 2-page document right here, do you think a 2-page document is really going to make a difference? Anything that you're going to be working on, anything that you're trying to work out and all that. Do you think that that's going to make a difference? And do you think that that's really going to explain everything? But everybody might say that that there was once upon a time where you had no clue of what they were talking about until that they were to explain to you in 2 pages about what they put together right here. So that's why it seems like people might say that if you were to actually move that like right up here or something like that, put that sideways or something like that, I don't know if I recommend everybody. I'm like, you don't really have to do that, but people might say that if you want to make that bigger right there, make that bigger right there and say that, where people can see it. You saw that earlier, and then where we put a price tag right there saying that if you do a good job, if you do a good enough job right here, we'll go ahead and put that in big letters right there. People will say that way people can see it right there. I'm willing to pay you $15 an hour if you're willing to do something like this, to where you're able to take care of everything and explain everything just by 2-page document right here, so that you can explain to everybody what all that you put together right here and what all that you come up with, and just by answering a few questions. And so you want to know too that so it's like, yeah, and, anything that's going to keep you busy, number one, but it's like $15 an hour. And there's a lot of jobs out there, by the way. They might even say that there's a lot of jobs out there, by the way, that say to require a few of them say that they're only going to hire you for $11 an hour. But let's just say that with this job here, that any job that you're talking about, that, people may say that, the 2-page source of employment, like just 2 pages right here, just 2 pages. And, so people might say that, if you were to think about that as like for any source of employment, how much progress do you think that you'll be able to come up with if you were to think about something like that? But anyway, but talk about right here is knowing about that gifts and all that, but still that knowing $15 an hour. Talk about for salary right here, but I mean really, that's just a thought. But I tell everybody that every time you think about salary though. It could be overtime. It could also be maybe a bonus pay or something like that. Maybe time and a half. But when we're talking about salary here, we're also talking about that company can actually see all the work that you put together, right? And that really made a difference right there. And so that's why. It seems like that every time you think about that, and you're 102, that explained on 2 pages right here, or what all that you put together, and that's why it seems like we originally hired you at a start rate of $11 an hour, but then we went and paid you the $15 an hour just because of this. I mean, so all. Yeah, so it's like for 2 pages right here. But people might say, well, it's are you sure that there was no 4 pages altogether? But I'm like, there was 4 pages, but still. So every time you think about a job, you just tell anybody really that could 2 pages really explain the work that you did in progress, and that knowing that with $15 an hour, that you look at that, and you 102 can really everybody else really see all that work that you were doing. But anyway, thanks for watching, everyone, and have a great day.